In view of the fact that Brian Dennehy and James Woods are co-stars in Bestseller, I think it's interesting to talk a little bit about how you have known each other in the past, for example. It's not been so long since the two of you were in Split Image. Can you recall a little bit of that first meeting?
Well, 7 or 8 years ago, but we'd met before that. And
Really?
I've known Jimmy for 10 or 12 years. And Jimmy is one of those interesting stories in the business. Everyone in the business, or at least the actors, knew him and knew his talent, and and we were all justifiably in awe of him for years. It took a long time for the producers and the directors and the public to catch up to the perceptions that we had all had for a long time. And finally they have, and it's long overdue.
Did the two of you kind of size each other up initially, and have you been doing that ever since?
I think that there's always a tendency to kind of, you want to practice your chops against another good actor, which is what this is all about. I mean, the reason I did this picture was I wanted to work with Jimmy again, because good actors make you better.
Yeah, and you've said that being a good actor means that you respond to other good actors.
Absolutely.
Which I think is kind of a nice way of putting it.
Sure, exactly. And I think that there's a lot of that in this picture. You know, he's an exciting and an energizing influence on you as an actor, and and you want to work with good people, and he's as good as there is.
Many of the most successful scenes in the picture give you guys a chance to kind of strike some sparks off each other. That's pretty critical, because no matter how good an actor you are, unless you can spar with somebody, right, you're nowhere sometimes.
Yeah. Well, his character, of course, is much more pyrotechnical and much showier, and mine is much more contained, much more the observer, much more watchful. And hopefully there aren't too many times, and I'm sure there are some times when it becomes boring. But the fact is that that's the way it's written, and that's the way you got to play it. You got to play it with discipline, and then there are times when it explodes, of course. But I think basically it all works. It hangs together, and there are moments in the picture where which I'm very pleased with, and for me that's a pretty good batting average.
I was going to suggest that maybe that quietness you refer to can work for you too, because of your physicality and your power when you hold it in. That's even more effective.
I think if you listen. And if you listen in the right way, if you listen intently enough, it can be very, it's something that people want to watch. What's he going to do now? What's he going to do next?
You are a big man, and I'm wondering if that sometimes in movies means there are roles you cannot play. Has that happened yet?
Oh yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure there are a lot of parts that I haven't been considered for that reason, and of course there are parts that I've gotten for those reasons. It's an advantage and it's a disadvantage. I've just lost, since this picture was made, I've lost about 25 pounds, and I'm trying to lose about another 20 or 25. I don't know whether I will, but I'm going to try. And we'll see if that changes the perception.
Well, I'd like to find some ways in which that physicality does go against the grain. In Cocoon, for example, you were very slick, very amiable. That bigness instead kind of worked towards a more smooth kind of manner. That's the kind of contrast I mean. What else in your films maybe pitch your size a little bit against type that you can think of?
Against type? Well, I think one of the pictures that helped me initially 10 years ago, which was 10. I mean,
The Bartender.
No one really expected to see not only an Anglo bartender in this Mexican place, which I don't know if anybody ever realized it, but there were no other Anglos working in this hotel, right, except for this huge Irish-American bartender. But aside from that, I mean, the fact is that role, which Blake and Lynn Stallmaster were very instrumental in me doing, because they insisted that I do it, was very quiet and very sensitive and very reflective, reactive kind of role. And it was exactly what I needed at that time in my career, because people saw me in a completely different way.
Seriously, score one for the big man, because big men can get stereotyped in films all too often.
Well, they can if they allow themselves to.
Yeah.
You have to say no. You have to say, no, I'm not going to do that. I mean, it's just like doing a TV series. I mean, if I've done a couple of TV series, and it would be very difficult to get me into one again, because the money is this big, quick infusion of cash, but you've got to play the same role, and you've got to do it, week in and week out.
Directing all of that size right into the innards of that typewriter is a nice kind of image, I think, that we have here. You could play a concert pianist maybe in a movie and nobody would question it. Have you gotten to that point where the size is not a liability at all.
Well, I think in the theater I have, and to some extent in the movies. And European pictures are very receptive to me playing different kinds of parts. The Europeans, the French and the Italians and the British. And I'm going to do more of that because they have offered me more interesting roles. But in America, we still, there is still this real interest in image. And, if you're not 28 years old with a 30-inch waist and you can't possibly have sex with anybody, that stuff doesn't happen. No one over 30, has a sexual relationship. There's this kind of childish attitude, that goes on as far as movies are concerned.
And for us, it's a continuing surprise because we always wonder what Brian Dennehy's going to be up to. Right. And I'm John Tibbetts with Brian. We're in Los Angeles for KCTV5.